I have to announce, on the heading of the Families First Award, the Suffolk Families Information Service, FIS, has been awarded the Families First Award by the National Association of Family Information Services, NAFIS. The award was presented to County Council Meeting Chambers and Sue Cook, CYP's Corporate Director and member, Diana Trooper, CEO, Family and Childcare Trust, and Nancy Ellison, NAFIS Manager. This award recognises a whole range of services by Suffolk FIS support families in Suffolk with children aged between 0 and 19, and 25 of those with disabilities. There's also a highly successful outreach arm. Each outreach staff member, based predominantly in children's centres or the integrated access team, is aligned to a social care team to identify vulnerable families to access early education and childcare. This way of working is recognised by the NAFIS assessors and shown to the Department of Education recently by Family Childcare Trust as an example of good practice. Suffolk FIS has been able to directly target funded early education places for those 2-year-old children predominantly and potentially at risk of harm and known to children's social care services. Has also been able to provide additional funding via the County Council's resource panel to pay for childcare for those children on the edge of entering the care system. So congratulations from this County Council to Anita Abram, Alison Manning, Jolene Pettit, Sarah Jones, Sarah Tattoo, Sean Lowe, and all the family information service operators and outreach staff. Applause, please. And I'm able to announce that the next quiz, Chairman's Quiz for Charity, will be held on the 2nd of April here in their house. So please try and sign up and join us there. You will. Actually, it's really quite an enjoyable occasion, even though Richardson eats all ties. I'm pleased to announce that the Chairman's reception, after much thought and consideration, is going to be held on Thursday, the 20th of April, at the Cookhouse Restaurant, Suffolk Brutal Worsley. Official invitations will be sent to you all, and I hope that you make it a point in your diary. I hope to see many of you there. And finally, under the Chairman's announcement, I think we'd like to welcome back County Councillor Rachel Fester into the Chamber. Please. I'll move on to agenda item number 3, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Jenny Antill, Helen Armitage, and David Hudson. And is Ken Cook here? No. She's not. What news?
Chair, she's...
We don't stand up.
She's expecting any day now, so we will let you know when the news has arrived. And Helen Armitage, you have what we got.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies? Fine, thank you. Coming on to agenda item number 4, declaration of interests, dispensations. Any further declarations to declare? No, thank you. Number 5. Can I sign the minutes of the last record as a record of the County Council meeting?
So moved, Chair.
Thank you. Second, please, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Agenda number 6, there are no further questions. And number 7, the revenue budget for 2014-15 and the capital programme 2014-17. Agenda item number 7 is a report by the Head of Strategic Finance on revenue budget for 2014-15 and, as I say, the capital programme 2014-2017. The move of the motion, County Councillor Colin Noble may speak for up to 20 minutes. I think that we have a second witness who right to speak for up to 7 minutes. So, agenda item number 7, County Councillor Colin Noble.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the revenue budget for 2014-2015 and the capital programme 2014 to 2017. A budget. It is a financial framework, but what really matters is how it feels. How it feels for the most vulnerable in our communities. How it feels for those who just use the universal services. And how it feels for families struggling to pay ever-rising bills. And that is why I'm absolutely delighted to present the budget here today. Because today, if you take perhaps the referendum cap and you apply it over the past 3 years, including today, as we deliver a zero council tax increase, that means hard-working families here in Suffolk today are £129 better off. If you apply that we will hold our manifesto pledge and deliver zero council tax increases to 2017-18 budget, that will mean families in Suffolk will be £205 better off. And that is why I'm immensely proud of what we are doing here today and will do in the future. Now, in preparing for the budget, I thought I would talk about three things. The approach, and how we have set this budget, the deliverability of it, and its robustness. And yes, Councillor Martin, when I talk robustness, I will be talking about reserves. But first of all, I would like to pay tribute to Councillor Story. In my time here in the County Council, she is the one who has always stood here. And I know she's sitting behind me, and I hope it isn't like Sir Alex Ferguson and David Boyd in the future. But I would like to pay tribute to as you prepare for a speech like this, and as we prepare, I think the context is incredibly important. Looking back from where we've come and looking forward to where we have to go. In the papers today, it talks about the £156 million that we have to save over the next 4 years. Over the past 3 years, we have saved £95 million since the incoming government imposed cuts on us and said that we simply could not have more money. And if you delve deeper into the budget, you go back to when Labour and the Liberals were in charge, and you've come across those dark days of 11.9% and 18.5%. But actually, I've got 3 seconds. But actually, when you unpick it, there is a lot more when you look through these budget books than just that headline council tax rate. It goes to, at that time of imposing those council tax hikes, there was also increased grant. Can you believe it? At the same time as taking more money off the people of Suffolk, they were actually getting more government grants. And you also see the culture, you see the dogma, you see a council unwilling to change. It would rather go to the people of Suffolk and take more money off them than adapt, than change, than live with the reality. And one of the fundamental changes from those days to today is that we are different. We are here to adapt. We are here to change. We are here to protect frontline services, and we are here to protect the most vulnerable. So, the approach that we've taken to this budget setting. I don't think in the history of this council we have ever talked more about the budget. Unlike across the road, where you virtually have to get to budget day for them to announce that they'll do the 1.99 because they aren't brave enough to go and ask the people of Ipswich. They go and do that. Here, we announced this months ago. In October, we were debating it in scrutiny here in this council. We have gone out into our communities. We have gone to parish councils. We have gone to district councils. We have gone to borough councils. We have met with business groups. We have met with groups of parish councils. We have met in surgeries. We have commissioned Mori to ask 4,000 people across Suffolk at Appendix C in the budget bills. And we have asked them what they think, what do they value, and we have reflected that. And it is interesting in the Morris stuff that 81% of people are satisfied with the area in which they live, and 48% are satisfied with the county council, set against 17 who are dissatisfied with the county council. So we have asked like we have never asked before. We have debated like we have never debated before. And this budget, I believe, truly reflects what people are telling us. But underpinning that, there is a whole string of work strands going on here. Things such as our place, One Haverhill, Lowestoft Rising, Newmarket Vision, and perhaps the first tentative steps to participatory budgeting, where we genuinely sit down with communities and we ask them, what services do you value? What services do you want? How do you wish us to deliver? And that isn't dogma, that is about working with our communities, living within our means, and delivering for Suffolk. Deliverability. Right at the start of setting a budget, you have to think about how you are going to deliver it. We have less money. That is a fact. There's nothing we can do about it. It isn't a choice. That is what we have. We have less money and we have to deliver a balanced budget. So what are we doing? We have saved 95 million to date. And as we've gone through that, at every single outturn quarter, we have managed to virtually hit every single target. And I certainly would like to say praise to the staff, and particularly Jeff, as the head of strategic finance. The prudency with which we approach the way in which we deliver. Because setting a budget as we are today is nothing if you cannot actually deliver it. And as we deliver it, you see the pragmatic approach from contracts such as with Care and Gym, with wholly owned companies such as EFMS and Concertus, with our own staff going out and forming mutuals, organisations such as Realise Future, Leading Lives, Sensing Change, and in our library service. You see the way in which we don't approach this with dogma that the council must deliver all, but we look for pragmatic approaches. And we have formed an industrial providence society, and every single one of Suffolk's libraries are open. Every single one of Suffolk's libraries have more friends, more community engagement than ever before. That isn't dogma, that is a pragmatic approach, and something on this side that we are extremely proud of. Now I turn to robustness. A budget is nothing if it is not robust. Now if you turn to Appendix H in the budget book, you will see a pie chart. And it is worth just pausing for one moment to reflect on this. Because there is no doubt times are changing. And the way in which we will get our money in the future will be different. And one of the things that perhaps we won't debate today, but perhaps one of the things we do need to pay more attention to, is this changing environment, and is the nature, as Ron goes down, how are we going to shape this county so that we achieve an income stream to continue to protect those services. So it is worth considering that, and I certainly will be picking up on that point, Councillor Martin, at some point during the course of this discussion today. Because if you listen to the opposition, and you listen to Mr. Balls tells us that Labour will fail to deliver a balanced budget until 2021. But one assumes in that they will continue the Conservative policy if this country, God forbid, elects them, of actually having some fiscal responsibility for the first time. And for us here, that means that 156 million, you extend it past it, and that even on the Shadow Chancellor's very words, you have to take it to 2021 before we have the slightest chance of receiving more money from government. We will be in a deficit situation, and that is incredibly important when you think about this budget, that we will be in a deficit situation until 2021. So if you now turn to page 103, where you will see the summary of reserves. Okay. Well, in the reserves, and we know there is an amendment coming, what we know is that we have taken the reserve overall position down. This year, there will be £11.5 million less in the reserves than there was last year. That is a 9% drop. We have taken money out of the service reserves. We have taken some £6.7 million out of the service reserves, and we have increased the contingency reserve by £5.7 million, which is a 50% increase. Now let me be very clear why we do these things. We do these things because reserves are there for unseen circumstances. Reserves are there in service directories for earmarked things, things the services are going to do. But we need additional money for things that are unexpected. We have the county general reserves, and we've seen in the last 2 weeks the flooding. We have those reserves to deal with things like that. And in the contingency reserves, they are there to deal with the unforeseen. They are not there as a cash cow to be spent. They are there to deliver the robustness of a budget. So, the approach has been about listening. Listening to what the people of Suffolk have told us and shaping a budget around that. Listening to what councillors have told us in scrutiny and shaping a budget around that. Listening to what the most vulnerable in Suffolk have been telling us and shaping a budget around it. It is about deliverability. It is about designing the services that we deliver, working with our communities, micro-commissioning in some communities, working with commercial companies in others, and working with the voluntary sector in others, to make sure that we are adaptable in the way in which we deliver. And I make no bones about it. It is robust. Because if it is not robust, it is nothing, and you run risks, serious risks for the County Council, that it will not be able to deliver the programmes that we set out. Mr. Chairman, this budget fulfills our election promise of 0% over 4 years. It fulfills our election promise of protecting the most vulnerable. And it fulfills our election promise of protecting families and their income. This year, applying the referendum cap, families will be £129 better off because there is a Conservative administration in this council than if there was an opposition administration. That is good news for Suffolk, and I commend this budget to the Chair.
Councillor Noble, do you have a second for your motion? Who is that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to second the motion and reserve my right to speak until later in the debate.
Thank you. Now, in accordance with the rules of procedure, the amendment has been received from Councillor Sandra Martin and seconded by Councillor Len Jackson. You've all received a copy of this amendment. The Council proposes the second of the amendment to speak. Can I ask Councillor Noble if he is going to accept this very word amendment?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't accept documents on the back of bag habits.
Right, so that means I will on Councillor Martin to speak up to 2 minutes on the amendment, which is before Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fellow councillors, I'd like to start by making it clear that this is an amendment to the administration's budget and not an alternative budget. Setting a budget for a local authority is a very difficult task and involves many hours of expert work from experienced local authority officers. Most administration parties find it difficult to put their own stamp on a workable budget. For an opposition party to presume to be able to draw up a workable budget without the resources and level of cooperation that are afforded to the administration would be the height of folly. I well remember the Conservative amendment to the Labour-led administration's budget drawn up by your then finance spokesman Colin Barrow. It was less than one side of A4, the figures on it didn't even add up, and that was not enough to stop him from going on to lead Westminster City Council. But in any case, we believe you have an almost impossible task in setting a budget which delivers the statutory services which this council has a duty to deliver within a budget envelope which the Secretary of State has slashed without consultation or justification and without any credible evidence that vital local authority services will survive at all. Residential care, domiciliary care, transport to school and training, youth services. There are so many areas where if the current government agenda cuts to local authorities persists, we can expect to see a completely untenable service within a very short time. We believe it is the duty of an effective opposition not only to point out where we think you, the council administration, are going wrong, but also to voice the anger and frustration of all those who can see everything that is best about council services being destroyed by an ideologically motivated government. A government which two of the parties in this chamber are colluding in. So even if our amendment were passed, we would still not be in support of your budget, as it starts from the base of a wholly inadequate financial provision for basic services which are already beginning to fail, and then cuts them even further. But what we can do, what we ask you to take in the constructive spirit in which it is intended, is to point up those items where we believe you can afford to spend money on retaining services, or in some cases on enhancing services, even within the butchered financial envelope which is still available to you. And the theme which runs strongly through our amendment is investing in the future, because it is a misuse of language to talk about savings when the cost to society of a loss of service is far greater than the cost of providing the original service would have been. The most expensive places to live, by far, are not luxury hotels, but prison and hospital. It is no coincidence that the countries which have the most effective and comprehensive social care and youth services, the Scandinavian countries, also have the lowest incidence of crime and the healthiest populations. We make no apology for the very heavy bias in our amendment towards addressing the inadequacy of education in Suffolk. Talking about every child matters and raising the bar shows a recognition of the need to improve our services for young people, but there are specific improvements which we know, you know, and Ofsted knows will work, and unless you allocate the funds to those improvements, your words are just so empty rhetoric. A child only has their childhood once. Most teenagers only get one chance to get the grades they need in their exams to go on to their chosen career. If we fail a child or young person, we can't apologise and offer them another go. If we enable that child or young person to learn better, to achieve better grades, to study better university courses, or undertake better workplace training, then we are investing in the future of our county. Unless this council is prepared to spend the money it takes to get an effective school improvement service, an effective educational welfare service, well-resourced libraries, services for children on the autistic spectrum, proper support for voluntary services to work with our most vulnerable young people, supported housing for those unfortunate enough not to have a family home that they can live in, we will not reap the reward of engaged and active working people contributing to their community, but of disaffected and despairing young unemployed, costing the society which has let them down. And our amendment also highlights the importance of maintaining well-trained staff and well-funded social care preventative service. Helping people to stay in their own homes is a welcome and effective approach. It is not free, and if it is not properly funded, it won't work. If we do not have properly trained staff, the social care services we have in this county will not be delivered safely. And if the private companies to which you have contracted out so many of your services are not giving their staff proper training, then this authority has a moral duty and a vested interest in offering that training to you. We know we will have more elderly people needing care in the future, and we need to prepare for that future now. We need to invest in the future of our elderly residents just as much as our young people, so that they can lead supported, independent lives in their own homes rather than in hospitals or nursing homes. And let me just mention the two capital items in our amendment. At a time when there's still significant youth unemployment in our county, when we need a stimulus to create productive jobs, not just retail jobs based on an increase in personal borrowing, and when we need to increase the economic productivity of Suffolk in order to attract new investment, there is every reason to invest in transport. The Labour Group welcomes the investment being made in transport schemes which work for most parts of the Labour. But there are two obvious holes. One is the lack of any programme for the third river crossing in Lowestoft, and we now call on the administration to honour the agreement to prepare a feasibility study for it. And the other is any source of finance for small-scale but vital safety and other minor traffic works on roads in our major towns. Works which may well save many times their actual cost in preventing accidental injuries and deaths. Mr. Chairman, investing in the future is not willful and wasteful squandering of taxpayers' money. It is helping to build a better society, a better Suffolk in which we will enable our residents to have more fulfilling and productive lives and to contribute to society in the long run, rather than costing it to remain independent. But the Labour Group do recognise that in the present climate, the people of Suffolk expect us to be extremely cautious with public money. And that is why we are not proposing an amendment to increase council tax. Instead, we believe it is time to use some of the money squirreled away in reserves in order to invest in preventative services which will save on costs in the long run and increase the potential for economic growth in our county. Now, Councillor Noble is determined that not a penny of the contingency reserve should actually be spent on vitally needed services. Councillor Noble does not think like me. For instance, when I likened him to a younger version of Eric Pickles, who was in Staffordshire at the Council Network Conference, he was visibly chuffed. And Eric Pickles was amused too. It's not a comparison I would welcome. I'm still in shock from the moment seconds later when Pickles actually hugged me. But when it comes to council reserves, I'm afraid Colin does not see eye to eye with his guru. On the 29th of November last year, Eric Pickles said that councils were misleading the public if they claimed they had no money left. This is what he said. There are no rules on what councils should hold in reserve, and taxpayers will be amazed that while councils are amassing billions in secret stockpiles, some are pleading poverty. Everyone appreciates the need for a financial umbrella for those rainy days, but keeping reserves at levels unprecedented in recent years should give local residents pause for thought. Instead, they could be tapped into to ensure that councils can protect frontline services. And then, of course, there is the old cliche that reserves can only be spent once. What will you do next year, says Colin Noble, and the year after? Every year we hear this argument, and every year the reserves grow and the needs which that money could have met also grow. I'm afraid I haven't got the fag packet with me because, as you probably realise, I get it sometimes. However, all I have got with me is a spreadsheet prepared for us by the Director of Finance. This administration has a history of underestimating the level of its reserves. In April 2009, the overall non-schools reserve was £74.3 million. In April 2010, it had gone up to £77.8 million. in February 2011, you predicted a total non-schools reserve of 85.7 million by April 2012. What you ended up with was 131 million. In February 2012, you predicted a total non-schools reserve of £126.5 million by April 2013. We suggested you should spend some of this money on vital public services, and in particular on preventative care. We can't spend any of this, you cried. Look, the overall reserve is down from £131 million to £126.5 million. Well, it didn't come down, did it? It went up to £156 million. I'm sorry, let me just repeat that. £74 million, £78 million, £85 million, £131 million, £156 million. Up and up and up and up. The fact is, it is not always possible to estimate the level of reserves accurately a year ahead. And it is always impossible for anyone other than the administration to identify what reserves actually are, because the elements that you count into the overall figure change with every report you publish. But year after year, this administration has added to its reserves, and the time has now come to spend some of that money on the services which are so desperately needed. Not in 10 years' time, but now. Mr. Chairman, fellow councillors, stashing money in the bank where there are urgent investment needs which will help prevent hugely great expense in the future is not prudent. It is callous and short-sighted and doomed to failure. This council cannot afford not to support this amendment, and I commend it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Do you have a second for your amendment to the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to reserve my right to speak.
The amendment is now on the table for debate. I think Councillor Bond, qualified person. Councillor Bond.
Mr. Chairman, I should like to offer my warmest felicitations to Councillor Martin for his excellent and informative speech, to the sense that he has adduced the most convincing evidence possible of the fiscal and financial folly to which he and his friends are so incurably addicted, which is to spend. If you can't tax more, you borrow. And if you've exhausted the taxing and borrowing bill, then spend reserves. It's true enough that the contingency reserve has been stiffened by 5.7 million. But it is also true that this amounts to only 1% of the net revenue budget. And even this, Councillor Martin wants to spend. Councillor Martin, we live in an uncertain and unpredictable and dangerous world. It is essential to protect ourselves against unforeseen financial threats. If they materialise, then the buffer of a decent contingency reserve could be a godsend. Its absence, though, a calamity for this county. No council could have done more to establish what its electors want to see. No council could have agonised more over how best to share limited money among competing needs. The people of Suffolk know, even if Councillor Martin does not, that it is wise and sensible to put something aside for a rainy day. A reserve, once spent, is gone. It's not an income. It does not replace itself. The effects of past obsessions extended beyond our income can be seen this very day in our external borrowing amounting to £330 million, on which we currently pay £13 million a year interest. But, Mr. Chairman, let us look on the bright side today. Let us be jolly thankful that Suffolk is in the hands of people for whom prudence and responsibility have absolute precedence. People that have got the backbone to take sometimes extremely unpalatable decisions so as to keep within our means. People that refuse to lapse into financial buffoonery. It is the trust of the Council to secure financial stability in the running of its affairs. Let us unite today in rejecting this preposterous amendment and let us then debate and vote the budget itself, grounded as it is in fiscal and financial soundness. Thank you.
Councillor David Ritchie, I think, is next.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think there's a common misunderstanding about reserves. Councillor Martin talks about money squirreled away in reserves. He talks about stashing the money away. Well, in Suffolk, that's not how it works. But we don't hold reserves in the way most people think. There is no money squirreled away in reserve accounts doing nothing. The money assigned to reserves is used to reduce long-term capital borrowing. When we need money in reserves, we increase capital borrowing. It is the same as a householder who, instead of having a mortgage, a deposit account, and a current account, has a single account, a one account, so that any money in hand is used to reduce their mortgage. So it is a myth that the county reserves are sitting in accounts doing nothing. Reserves are used to reduce long-term capital borrowing until they're needed. Reserves are not sitting idle. They're working for the Suffolk Council taxpayer by reducing the cost of borrowing. So that there's no pile of money doing nothing that could be spent on the vulnerable. If there was, it would be a case for spending. But it is working for the Suffolk taxpayer all the time. And I looked at Jeff to shake his head if I'm wrong about this. Thank you very much.
Next speaker before is Councillor David Busby. Councillor Busby. No. Oh. You can speak to the amendments on the table now. Right.
Frustrating, I think the finance of this country seems to be run by magician dynamo. It's an amazing sleight of hand to be able to give the public that a 1% bribe from the government isn't going to cost them as much as a 1% increase in council tax. Who provides the funds for the bribe? If we do, in our tax. So it's pretty misleading to say that anyone in Suffolk is going to be better off as a result of this budget. But all we've done is given the government greater control over our finances. However, we are coming up to a 0% increase, which means that the reduction in revenue must come from either efficiencies or a reduction in services. Given that a number of our services are not performing to the satisfactory level, it may be a little premature to reduce their budgets. Delivering transformation is the key to financial success. I hope we're going to see this government bribe used to accelerate this transformation process and not just put into funds and into reserves. Not necessarily all of the things that I think the Labour amendment has suggested I will support, but by far the large majority. I think it's dangerous to cut finances the services that are not performing before they've been given the chance to transform themselves. So I will support this.
Thank you. The next speaker call is Councillor John Fields. John.
Thank you. I'm about to demonstrate that their party has some different views. You have to recognise that we are deep part of the government, which is desperately at the moment trying to reduce a very large deficit generated by our party sitting in front of me at the moment. There are a number of issues in this amendment which I have to say, however, we would like to support, given the opportunity perhaps individually. We certainly understand that the budget on reserves. We do feel that the standing list is probably correct. We have been building reserves. We have been using our income to build sums of money that we intend to use in a rainy day. It's fairly rainy, actually. This is a rainy day, but nevertheless, one does need to set the reserves, not to take the point that we currently use them to pay off or to reduce our borrowing requirements and the interest on that. However, if I look down the actual list of amendments here, I see things like the CYP4, the impact on the learning and improvement service, which I was rather like the sort of suggestions we made last year to that service needs supporting, needs enhancing. We need to do something to combat the appalling reduction in our position in educational details. You know, we understand that we perhaps yielded £200 less in raising the income council tax over the years of your administration, but you have sort of also reduced the reduction of the local education authorities down to very close to the bottom. And we do believe that needs addressing. There's similarly the line item that talks about support to supporting people. That's classically support for much vulnerable in society, and that's what we like to support. However, we see a number of these other elements here really demonstrate that failure to grasp the need to extend our control, that the country is in a good position, that our budgets are being cut as one of the few options the government has, and that therefore we do have to match our budgets, our annual budgets, that we currently have. We would like within that to understand exactly some of the things the administration is doing to drive up efficiency in places like SCS. We always feel that's more difficult to understand. It's nice to believe that anecdotal evidence suggests that there are substantial service cuts going on there. But taking this on, I cannot support this.
Thank you.
I'm speaking in support of the amendment which relates to libraries, specifically around cuts to bookstore. First, I wish to give you some background information about cuts to the library service. Overall, from 2010-11 to 2013-14, there has already been a 22% cut in funding for Suffolk libraries. Next year, there is a further cut to 6%. These cuts are not sustainable. With regard to the Bookstore Fund, between 2008-9 and 2012-13, the Bookstore Fund was cut by 33%, £890,600. In 2012-13, this represented a spending of £1.21 per head of population in Suffolk. Of 15 comparable authorities, this puts Suffolk third from the bottom. It is now proposed to cut this by a further 70,000, a further 8% cut. It cannot be argued that because of the rise in e-book use, the book stock fund can be reduced. This is a spurious argument. I must clarify the situation. The bookstore fund is a fund that can do its part of all stock for life. Books, CDs, DVDs, audiobooks, e-books, and e-readers. All stock, including e-books, have to be bought. E-readers, e-audio, e-books, all need to be purchased. Libraries and the quality and quantity stock are important for literacy skills. The UK has made little progress in global reading tables, ranking 23rd place out of 65 countries. Good libraries in our communities and schools are an important way to support young people to develop these skills and help them reach their potential in life. The Chartered Institute of Library and Information Professionals warns that libraries are often viewed as easy targets to save money. This is short-sighted and dangerous. Public library services offer people access to the information, tools and support needed to survive and thrive in today's society. People use public libraries to look for employment, to access essential government services and develop their skills. Bill Brown, the Suffolk President, says, "It is not no exaggeration to say that the more that library services are cut, the more people will cut the drift and access to basic information that they so desperately need. An attack on a library service is an attack on a community.
There was the last few minutes.
And for everyone in society, young and old, male or female, literate or not, with internet access all down, it is vital that they are not only kept money, but they flourish. A library is many things: a community centre, a place of inspiration, or a centre show that a library is nothing without its books. I support the amendment.
Thank you. Next speaker is Councillor Simon Parker.
Spine Road of what has been the 20 years of the stop-start construction of the Lowestoft Relief Road. But the relief to the businesses and the people of Lowestoft of a congested, economically held back town will only really happen when the final phase, the last bit of the jigsaw, is built, the crossing. Work is underway between this council, Norfolk, and the new Ereira-Guyer to submit a strategic economic plan, and the third of the crossing needs to be included in this, as it is probably the most economically significant project for Lowestoft. Undertaking the feasibility to bring this play up is needed now. Officer tells me that the bridge is first mentioned in the statutory Lowestoft town plan in the 1960s. I was a little fool now. Almost 50 years on, the third river crossing remains on a waiting list whilst other projects have been delivered. It is about time for the needs of the people of Lowestoft to be taken seriously by this council. This study is the start. The benefits to Lowestoft are an end to its traffic gridlock, removing the sense of a north-south divide, freeing up areas of the town lighted for years with poor transport links, enabling the economic growth of the designated enterprise zones to the south of the inner harbour, encouraging expansion of offshore wind energy industry to the town, and in doing so, creating numerous jobs. Completing the feasibility study will move this local aspiration, as it is described in the Lowestoft Transport and Infrastructure Prospectus of 2025, to a Suffolk top priority strategic growth scheme, where I believe it should be. I fully support the amendment as set out, and in particular for highway elements within it.
Thank you, Chair. I am speaking obviously in support of the amendment, particularly about use services and the items of the budget are ACS 2, 3 and 5. 2 and 3 related to workforce development and training, and 5 is supporting people. And my concerns about cost those costs in these areas, the first changes to the budget as outlined in the amendment signal a clear consistent message on health and recreation, which should be a concern to all county councillors. Training and development of staff at times of cuts are essential to maintain quality services, so this is clearly an area which should not be cut. There is comprehensive evidence that investing in your staff in times of change is invaluable in maintaining morale and high standards when you're asking those people to innovate and go the extra mile to do more for less. Please reject that cut and support that amendment passed unanimously. The amendment also rejects any cut in support of the budget line to say £2 million. This is an area of the budget sadly no longer in funds, and this service provides private support to local groups to transform people's lives and reduce their dependency on other forms of service or benefits. For example, support of people funds accommodation-based services supporting homeless people and services which help individuals with learning disabilities and mental health issues to live independently in their own homes and participate in the community. I'm sure that each and every one of the councillors in this chamber can think of at least one of their constituents in this situation and rightly support through this budget line. Is this council really so heartless and brutal that we value to warrant reserves over supporting some of those in the greatest need in our communities? If there ever was a clear case of spending some of the rainy day money, surely this is the time. An independent evaluation carried out in 2009 of the current government estimated the national annual investment of £1.6 billion in housing-related support, generated net savings of £3.4 billion, more than double, by awarding more cost-effective services. Therefore, by maintaining this £2 billion, we will save the Suffolk County Council taxpayers £4 million in years to come. So it's a benefit to invest in these services. This means real cost savings and economic benefits to every local area. Cuts to these services will create disproportionately negative impact on vulnerable people and result in a greater cost to Suffolk County Council, other boroughs and district councils, health, the police, and other statutory services. The independent evaluation further proves that the present economic downturn is likely to intensify demand for services paid for well around, particularly where such services deal with the needs of the socially excluded. We are now facing a period of radical upheaval in a number of areas, which risks increasing the demand on services yet further. In particular, the cuts to housing benefit and changes to the homelessness duty create instability, What impact will this have on related services? How much more widely will the impact be felt? Have consultations been held with current providers? Will they prevent with the greater company? I urge you to support the amendment, reject these cuts, and make sure that collectively we take care of those with the greatest need and suffer, and those who develop quality of life we all aspire to. This is the wise words of the Bishop earlier today, when he talked about the poor and dispossessed, when he said, use your political service and leadership to create a vision of society where the dignity, needs, and rights of all people be respected and preserved. I hope you will support the amendment and I commend it to you. Thank you.
I would like to support the amendment and speak in support of my colleague Councillor Gayer's comments about allocating the highway minor capital schemes programme. As councillors, we are responsible to support the use project. However, unless the schemes are very small, most traffic management requests in the lowest in the industry and over the large urban areas cannot be introduced as there is no funding to design the bill. In Lowestoft, we have road safety concerns outside schools and pedestrian crossing requests to be shops. The industry should have put cycle routes to small and shopping areas. All of these measures that be introduced will be trying to sustain travel, reducing the volume of car trips on congested roads. £1.8 billion on street parking plan will be allocated to the introduction of locally requested small scale road safety measures, and I believe it should be supported as agreed by the council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, contrary to the view that might be harmless on the side of favour, in our health community services we found no loss of service capacity, no reduction in range of customers we support, better outcomes for both individual carers and their families. Our budget of £200 million in ACS increased up to £5 million demographic changes. We have planned for change. At any one time, we support some 14,000 people through practical arrangements with 600 private and public sector organisations. Our Supporting Lives and Connecting Communities programmes are more proactive way of working with the community is being rolled out across Suffolk. You will see the demonstration in the council's area today. It is keeping people as well as possible in their homes. Early intervention, hospital discharge, supports to be able to maintain independence. Our local social care teams are working with GPs, physiotherapy therapists, and multidisciplinary teams to be prepared. Our home first starts returning people to their most able, who we need premature care home place. There is joint working with health, reducing forms of better practice, reducing the results. We have responded to budget scrutiny. We forecast to spend some 4.7 for £8 million service. From investing to save, increasing the occupational therapy support, assistive technology. We have confidence also that our savings in workforce development will be made without insignificant loss of service. Staff numbers that we are responsible for, approximately 2,600 to 1,200 over the last few years, whilst maintaining the social work numbers, mental health social work numbers, and the home first career numbers. This is how it's worked. CYP and ACS workforce development is come together to now more effective, efficient, more focused. In-house expertise to be developed with much less external fishing. Our collaborative work with partners has worked. So I can firmly reassure this chamber that our workforce development is quite safe, effective, and improving in finance. Now turning to supporting people, our commissioning some of short-term housing-related support. This is discretionary, not statutory. We are in the process of co-producing housing-related support for our future with all of our partners. Our intention, our firm intention, is not to reduce service capacity or the range of customers currently supported. We want to move away from fixed block contract systems that support bricks, mortar, and management costs to a more personalised, time and outcome structured support package based on an individual's needs, specifically helping clients to move from housing-related support to social housing and then development right. We register report. So in summary, I repeat, we have no plan to foster service capacity, no reduction in the rate of customers and support, better outcomes for individuals, their carers and their others.
Mr. Chairman, as we heard from Councillor Lowe, I think we've got a budget before us today. We just had more consultation than in our budget before. With this amendment, Mr. Chairman, this was actually put before us in the last 10 days. Whilst we have discussed some of the principles of exclusion, I think it's very good to say that the impact of these amendments have not been scrutinised. Certainly, the impact which has bond revenues in terms of the low level of businesses reserves becomes a result of these amendments very accepted. This is not a revised budget, this is actually an amendment to an appendix of the budget. This amendment has had no scrutiny. This amendment has had no consultation with the residents, unlike the budget that's forward. And there is a very rash assumption that more money equals more services, or less money equals less services. I put it to you, Mr. Chairman, that is not what we are thinking of this side of the chair. That is old-fashioned thinking. And the moves that we are making in transforming services and through that text. In summary, Mr. Chairman, this amendment is not in the interests of the people of Suffolk. I don't believe this amendment is for the people of Suffolk. I actually think this amendment has been written to try and attract the interest of one of our local political electors. But I actually believe we have political evidence that actually can see through it. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, because we do not run a budget written before our political evidence, I strongly recommend that this amendment to must be.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I strongly support Councillor Finch's words and speaking against the amendment. I want to thank Councillor Field for his refreshing and realistic understanding of the situation, the economic situation we face, and the absolute need for fiscal prudence at this very delicate stage in managing the affairs of the country. Of course, Councillor Martin, one man's untenable is another man's difficult. And of course it's difficult to make these changes. It's hard. It's very difficult. But we are changing the way we do things. And as you heard from Councillor Murray, things are changing. Things are being done in a better and clearer, preventative way. Now, Councillors Ritchie and Bond have explained very clearly the issue of the spending of reserves. You can only spend it once. Councillor Martin, you have presented us with a question to ask you, which I'm looking forward to the answer. How long can you maintain these services by raiding the reserves, and what happens when they run out? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I basically want to echo Councillor Noble's when he mentioned the use of reserves. approach to the voluntary sector on savings proposals. We have met all organisations individually and together with Community Action Suffolk and the Council's external funding team. The voluntary sector have found this approach useful in finding alternative funding to ensure that they can continue to provide services to the community. I can also agree with the proposed amendment relating to the Learning and Improvement Service. We are responding to the changed relationship between the local authority and schools due to the changes in the education policy and the development of academies. Now let's move on to section 2 of the amendment. We have debated the increase of education welfare officers previously in this chamber, in fact it's only the last meeting. I explained then and I repeat now, we have already increased the number of education welfare officers in the last year, so I'm seeing no need to increase that number further. Lastly, and probably most importantly, children with autism are, I agree, a clear priority. The key issue here is developing suitable provision in Suffolk for autism. As suggested in the amendment, 250,000 for 1 year is frankly a drop in the ocean to meet this growing need. As an example, I would just like to pose to you that 250,000 would buy one child, one place in an expensive out-of-county provision. I explained previously to Council that we have and are implementing a revised autism strategy with carers. And Councillor Mark, you will be pleased to know that we are working with the National Autistic Society and HELP to deliver an in-county specialist resource provision using a mechanism of free school. This will be funded by the Department of Education and will meet the children's needs so they can, and this is a really important point, remain in their family home, be educated in their community, and have direct access to a specialist resource. 250,000 does not achieve our ambition of what is needed. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I cannot accept this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Councillor Meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And, can I begin by saying how much I enjoyed Councillor Martin's speech, and it was very entertaining. I think we have heard some very interesting comments from the opposition spokesman. But I think what has been very interesting about this is that they have failed to hit the target on so many things. And I think what's also been very interesting in it is that Councillor Martin talks about former Councillor Colin Barrow and sort of holds up this whole thing about the fact it's only on the amendments are on one side of A4, which he has following him today. He said, of course, they didn't add up, which again he has followed today. And of course he has not, as we have heard from Councillor Finch, taken any of this to scrutiny or taken any of this to allow the people of Suffolk to allow them to buy. Now I'd like to, if I may, just focus down on one or two of the failed points that we've not been able to hear from the other side in any realistic form of budget, because this isn't a budget here, and as we've heard, this is not even a proper amendment. And as you've heard about the School Improvement Board, we take education very seriously on this side of the chamber. It is our #1 priority, and that is why the School Improvement Board budget is something that we are reforming so that the resources can go where they are most needed, to the front line, and do most good. Because the way education is changing, it does not require the state that they have been reformed in and to remain in the way they were reformed, which of course is the Labour message. They don't want us to change structures, they want to maintain structures. We are all about reforming structures so that money can go to most needed. Now this whole issue about reserves, Mr. Chair. Now if you look at our reserves, in fact our reserves are going down. We are reducing our reserves, despite what Councillor Martin said. And if you strip away all of our reserves from all of those that are earmarked, we are down to 17 million in our reserve. That is our core reserve. And of course, as has been said already, once that money is spent, that money is gone and it's gone for good. Councillor Martin wants to take £4.5 million out of the budget this year, and that is his only answer in adding up what he has in this amendment out of that 17 million. What's he going to do next year if we have another flight of fantasy in amendments there? It does not add up, Mr. Chairman. The other thing I'd like to pick up on is what Councillor Gage raised about the issues around the third crossing, the new crossing over Lake Burton. Yes, we do take very seriously the amendment which we agreed with. Actually, I think it's Councillor Langford who said this going earlier on. And I think he may have also been supportive trying to play the Greens in all that. I was very happy to second that, because I could see that a cross-party way forward was very important. But Councillor Gage should know this. That river crossing is part of the A12, which is a trunk road. It is a highways agency responsibility. It is not up to us to throw 100 million on that road, because it is not up to our responsibility to do that. But we will take seriously the feasibility study. We will spend money in that feasibility study, and then when we know what the cost of that project will be, we will then see what it is. But to throw money at something that we don't know the full extent of the feasibility study does not make sense. I will wind up, but I would support, as you would expect me to, my members not to support.
Mr. Chairman, I really want to just actually bring up that this county council has given its wholehearted support to a further study onto another crossing of Lake Burton. Gave that last time on the 19th of December. It's coming from our director of reserves. Don't need to take the money from the corporate reserve as you have asked at this stage. But since that, we have also managed to get the Prime Minister here to see the problem. You tell me why it is that all the time, Mr. Blizzard was the member of Parliament. He can bring any government minister down and see the problem with the third crossing and do something about it. The actual reason for that is something is the simple fact that the last government spent no money on infrastructure in this county. And that is why we're in the place we are today in Lowestoft. This organisation will see the study of this through. We are working with the Highways Agency in the A47 Alliance and also in the A47 Study Group. And the work we are doing is part of that whole process of cementing what the Prime Minister came here to guarantee 23rd of January, that we will see something done about the A47 link, which is greatly improving the access from Lowestoft to the A11 down to London. Now, it isn't a matter of people on street parking lot, Mr. Chairman. That is one of the few parts of the money where councillors actually had some say. Whoever is the lead member, as I am now, I will bring you proposals to how to use that money over the year. But there's a wealth of stuff that needs help with that. A number of projects in various departments, not excluding the Cycle Bridge, which we have to make a contribution to. There's work going on in Andrew Street South, which is important. Parking restrictions that the Suffolk Hospital we pledged to do. None of which is previously funded anywhere else. But most of all, you have asked us to sort out the visitor park corridor store. I have responded positively to that. We are going to do some work where we get the money from. This is the sort of we will take it down later on to show you where. One final thing, Mr. Chair. You know, we keep hearing this word regular use here. Have a look at page 35 in this paper and see that we went trying to say that this is a £1 million issue. Next year, there's 42 million. The year after that, £50 million. Where do we do that if we just keep on taking other reserves? We have to do something more constructive. We have to put other partners that help us with
regarding the The service works with those families who are most at risk of having children in his care. They provide support to young families and their extended family when pregnancy is identified until the child is 2 years old. There is empirical evidence to show that this works, and for each of the nurses working with 15 young moms, at least 3 children are saved from such care. As we've heard, the most expensive places for people to live are in hospitals and prisons. The third most expensive place to live is in care. The long-term support needed for children in care from local authorities is incalculable. The support they need and deserve throughout their lives puts huge amounts of pressure on council resources. The long-term support needed for children, and this is the partnership work with the victims of domestic abuse to support both the victim and the perpetrator to deal with their issues. The Family Nurse Partnership provides not only support but inspiration to those they work with, many of the people using the service, and the training as health visitors, family nurses, or social workers. As we've heard, early intervention is much cheaper than long-term fixes. The cost of one child in care to Suffolk County Council and the cost of other interventions in the family's life is far exceeds £75,000 per year, which I was glad to hear from Councillor Chambers, £250,000 is a drop in the bucket. So to have this administration got £75,000 in funding from this fantastic project is beyond me. Cutting services like these is storing up problems that we face in the future. This budget takes no account of the future needs of vulnerable people, and I am supporting this amendment wholeheartedly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next speaker, of course, Councillor David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm not opposition, I'm independent. However, I do agree with a lot of what Councillor Martin said in his speech, in that it's our duty really to be investing in Suffolk, not necessarily in communities, but I did it on a small
much year in hand. The government's still running a huge deficit. Problems of the euro are resolved. With the prospect of increasing government funding that the county supports an amendment with full party. As has been previously said, we need these reserves for a rainy day, and there are still many dark clouds on the horizon that could, as council know, loom into the evening floods. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this amendment is what one might expect from a member of a party which has learned nothing from its experiences during their deficit years. In the end, if you keep on spending, somebody else must pay. It shows that he does not expect to be in a position of financial accountability anytime soon. I recommend that he tries really hard to get to Brussels. They haven't had their accounts done in 20 years. Mr. Chairman, like the childish demonstration of bad manners when you enter this chamber, it is student politics we have here. Flashy, good in parts, but without our understanding of the risky world we live in. The amendment is not worth a paper that it's treated on and should be rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to second this amendment. The limit is very careful about that. We haven't. We actually sat down to talk about it. And we consulted with the officers to do it, and especially with the system of officers to ensure that this isn't being illegal, proper document. Thank you for your time. I want to talk about that really not. First, I want to say, I want to quote from the paragraph 57 of the Chief Financial Officer's report. In it, on April 1st, 2013, contingency reserve for £11 million, the service reserve for £28 million, and the good old county reserve for a further £11 million. I total, Mr. Chairman, of the 55 million unrestricted reserves. These are figures in fact of backup Councillor Noble. These are just figures. Over the past 5 years, these unrestricted reserves have risen by 5.7 million. The unrestricted reserves account aware of what's morally required. Even in the effect of our amendment, the portfolio holder is subjectively ready to spend on the giveaway, even though that is planning just in time for the 2015 period. Nobody will aware of it too. As on this law on the master, the Chancellor's leadership, because I'm a big problem with
spent anything. This time last year, the Conservatives told us that £11 million we continue to reserve is going to be adequate. Now they tell us it's actually gone up to £70 million for the past year. By my calculation, maybe I can do the science, look at my calculation, that we have at least £6 million more in the contingency reserve than the Conservatives thought was necessary to farm. Reserves are about ensuring that we have enough money to cover the peaks and troughs, enabling us to cover any shortfall that we can't predict. And we do know, we've actually spoken to many of those on the ground who are going to be delivering the vital services that are going to be cut. By adding an extra 4.5 million to the reserves, this administration will be guiding this, will be reviewing. At this time, it's vital to restore the services you identified in this amendment, in order to save money in the long term. All governments are there to ensure that capital doesn't put the most vulnerable people that even greater risk of being more protected and more expensive in the country. We also know that if there's a track in the wall, it's cheaper to get fixed now and not wait until the walls fall down. Remember, we're making fix the small and people's lives. Intervening now and not let their lives have fallen apart. We're absolutely aware that the argument against spending reserves is that we can't spend twice. We keep hearing that. We want it to change in 5 years, and if anyone in this chamber seriously thinks that Eric Pickle will suddenly Secretary of State for the government in 2019 and then pass me with Swedish citizenship for all my life. We propose to reduce the uncommitted money contingency reserves to a more realistic level for the coming year. This administration has not spent over £1 million from the contingency reserves in any of the last 5 years. So what makes the administration think we'll need £5.7 million for this year? At this time, it's not prudent to slash and burn services in order just to top up the reserves. And we've talked about rainy days. It's flooding, Mr. Chairman. It's absolutely pouring now. It's not prudent to it's not prudent. Two more, Mr. Chairman. It's not prudent, Lord, to save money on the back of saying, we don't mind if you turn to crime because the quality of education is and we don't care for people going to school do we care, or do we just want more money in the bank? Because that's what you're doing. I for one can't stand idly by and watch this administration hoard money and I don't know what to read. I commend this amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In preparing for this amendment, I always like to think, where is the opposition going to go? And it did rather strike me that Councillor Martin probably would start at his usual tack of being a deficit denier. So I thought I would print off the little notes that the inverter sent to the incoming Secretary of State. And it says here, I'm afraid there is no money. That's what he said. And so that is what the incoming coalition inherited. And in October of that year, we heard what that meant for local government. We heard that we would enter a period of time when grants would be reduced and we would have to look to ourselves as to how we paid for things. And a thread throughout what I've heard here is that you simply don't accept it. You deny it. Which is rather bizarre because even your own Shadow Chancellor has said and stated that he won't be able to produce a balanced budget until 2021. So we are actually in a period of 10 years where we have to look to ourselves, where we cannot look to others to solve our problems. Councillor Martin went on to say, you've got to stop pleading poverty. Well, if you are delivering 0% council tax, you're not going to the people of Suffolk and demanding more money. And if you go back to the days of 11.9 and 18.5 council tax, you pleaded poverty and you went to raid people's bank accounts. That is precisely what you did, not what we are doing. We are living within our means on this side of the chamber. Now, we turn ourselves to this issue of reserves. We turn ourselves to the cumulative effect of all the proposals of £4,530,000. The contingency reserve is 17.1. If I take 1 year's off, I arrive at £12.6 million. If I go to the following year, because we're in a 10-year period where we have to look to ourselves, there's no more money coming from government, that becomes 8.1. The following year it becomes 3.5. The following year it becomes minus £1 million. The following year it becomes minus 5.5, and the following year it becomes minus £10 million. So instead of having any contingency reserve, we lose the lot. We run immense risks if we do that. Now I am told that we have put too much money into the contingency reserve. We have lowered the overall reserve. We have lowered the service reserves, which means we are banking on our staff's efficiency. We are banking on their ability of providing new ways of working. We are banking on them being able to do what they have for the last 3 years of delivering £95 million. We are banking on them being able to live within the programme we set them and deliver £156 million. Now, Suffolk, if you compare us, as we do, with the Eastern region, have some of the lower end reserves. And when I considered the reserve position, I thought very carefully about how we lower service reserves and how we put that a little bit more in the contingency. Now, Councillor Jacqueline, you said that you felt that you couldn't see why we would increase those. Now, let me be very, very clear. When you take out £95 million and 156, you are putting the system under pressure all the time. It is getting more and more difficult. That is the nature of it. So by putting a little bit more in the contingency reserve, you are making it more robust. And this is the fundamental point we are making. It is about robustness, about the ability to deliver. So, as Councillor Fitch said, if this was serious, if this wasn't political showboating, then quite frankly you brought it to a debate. You haven't. You brought it here as an amendment, and it is on the back of the fag bucket, because the one thing you will not do is talk about council tax. Across the road, most of you voted for 1.99, which you won't do that here, you won't propose it here, because you don't want the headline. And I will end by saying, yes, Councillor Brooke, yes, we are scared. We are very scared. We are very scared by this amendment and the lack of prudence, the lack of knowledge, and the lack of understanding of fiscal matters that drove this county to a state of affairs where you put the council tax up by 11.9% and 18.5%.
That's fine. Well, thank you for that robust debate. We now have the opportunity to vote on this amendment. Are we ready? We are ready to vote now. Those who favour this amendment, you press number 2, is that correct? Yes. Against it is number 3. If you want to abstain, it's number 4. I'm going to ask you please to vote now. Have you all voted? Thank you. I close the vote. What is the result, please? right. Happy to report there are 20 members of this council chamber voted in favour of the amendment, and we have 50 against, and one person abstained. I therefore declare that the amendment is indeed lost. Now, under the rules of the budget debates, there will be no further amendments today, so we now move on to the substantive motion which is now before you. Anybody want to speak? Speak. Indeed. Councillor, please stand up. You've got 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I probably need to point out to everyone in this chamber, particularly councillors sitting opposite me, that although I may appear to have the magisterial quality that one would expect in a council leader, I am not actually the leader of this council. Councillor B is. And that we are not actually running this council, you are. And so if you want to turn over the entire resources of the county's officers to us so that we can prepare a budget for next year, if you want to turn over the resources of the county so that we can go out and consult on our budget throughout the county for next year, then by all means do so, and we might do something more than we've done this year. But I have to say that I have made it perfectly clear that we were not putting forward an alternative budget. We were putting forward some perfectly feasible amendments to some of the cuts that you are putting forward, which we think will cost the county of Suffolk more in the long term. On the 31st of January, Fairfield's care home in Ipswich was closed after months of shocking revelations about just how inadequate the staffing, cleaning, food and other basic essentials of care were being provided. And it won't be the last. In East Anglia Daily Times on Monday, yet another care home is being investigated in Suffolk. Suffolk County Council pays for many of the residents in these private homes, but the amount paid per resident has been pared back again and again and again. The owners, some of whom, like the owners of Fairfields, are clearly only interested in the financial profit they can make, have responded by cutting back the heating, the food, the stock, the maintenance of the building. If you do not pay enough to cover the costs of proper care, there will be no proper care. It is one of the basic tests of civilization how we care for our elderly residents. A test that we are failing. And domiciliary care is no better. With 0 hours contracts, on minimum wage, with no pay for travel time, and impossibly short visit periods, I do not believe it will continue to be possible to find domiciliary care workers who are willing or able to afford to work in Suffolk. We have young people who are unable to attend training courses because they cannot afford the transport. We have families, or even more so, elderly people living with incapacitated partners who have not had a proper holiday for years because there is no respite care available which will enable them to leave their cared for relative in a safe environment for 2 weeks. We have parents who are having to face sending their children to a primary school on the other side of town. Quite a burden when the town is the size of Ipswich or Lowestoft or Bury, because there have been insufficient investments in their nearest catchment school, or because a much-needed new school has not yet been built. We had parents ferrying their teenage children about in cars because there are no longer any buses running on the route they need to get back from after-school activities. And of course, we have teenagers, far too many of them, coming to the end of their time at school without the exam results they need to pursue their chosen futures. The idea that the cuts imposed by the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition government on local authorities up and down the country have not had any impact on frontline services is frankly adding insult to injury. We have outlined an amendment to the proposed budget which we believe would have been achievable, affordable, and would have gone some way to alleviating the deep structural problems in society that the cuts in county council services are creating. The Conservative councillors have chosen not to support our amendment. That is your prerogative. But I warn you, if we as a society, the Conservatives have, Conservatives over there. But I warn you, if we as a society are all in this together, we were told by the Prime Minister. Well, I cannot believe anyone still swallows that one. In a more equal society, we would not have the massive disparities of health, education, housing and income which mar our country. In a more equal society, everyone would be better off, not perhaps all with more money in their pockets, but all living lives which are healthier. Not just physically healthier, but also emotionally and morally healthier. It is time for us to stop making excuses about not being able to afford this, that or the other, when the things we say we cannot afford would make life-changing differences to the people in need. It's time for us to recognise that in the 6th biggest economy in the world, we should not have people dying of malnutrition or dehydration because we can't fund care homes properly. It's time for those of us who believe in society to call on this council and the government of our country to use our resources to enable all of our citizens to lead healthy, productive and fulfilling lives.
And the opportunity for Councillor Mumford to speak for up to 5 minutes. Councillor Mumford, to speak.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This group accepts that the budget proposal before us we accept the budget proposals before us, and we recognise the limited options and constraints imposed by current economic conditions, not wholly but largely inherited from the previous Blair-Brown government. We also endorse this council's commitment to avoid raising council tax, a promise to the people of Suffolk which it appears that they will be fulfilling. As the economy shows only slight signs of improvement, we accept that the current council reserves are justified, and we were not tempted to support their use today on the assumption that they will not be needed tomorrow. In the present circumstance, this is a workable budget which complies with controls imposed by central government. In this period of austerity, reserves and infrastructure are in decline. We have third world roads, inadequate flood defences, and deteriorating health and care provisions, despite increased demand. At the same time, Britain is one of the most generous sources of foreign aid and a net contributor to the European Union, much of this money being lost in fraud and corruption. We do therefore question this Council's meek acceptance of the controls imposed by central government and demand that their priorities are reassessed. The commitment to foreign largesse should be reviewed whilst this Council is called upon to oversee the deteriorating standards and unfulfilled needs at home. Thank you.
Shame.
Okay.
Firstly, may I state that we in our group fully understand the financial needs of the country and the requirement to raise efficiency to give good value for money. As such, we fully support the proposed 4% increase in council tax. However, we sincerely believe that the people's bribe should be used and not placed in the reserves as seems to have become the practice. This money should be given back to the people of Suffolk from whom it was extracted in the first place, via their taxes, and used to support some of the services you are proposing to cut. We are especially concerned with the cuts in ACS that apparent efficiencies are masking significant service reductions. We have anecdotal evidence that this is so. In CYP it was somewhat different. Here we have clear evidence that we're still performing badly, as the UK will show, and yet we see substantial budget cuts. This cannot be right. The future of Suffolk depends on the aspirations of its young people, yet we see the massive cuts that you're proposing. We do, however, welcome the gains in the Energy from Waste project, moving of CSD in-house. But surely there is a very hard lesson to be learned here as regards CSD. This is a project that's been badly managed for some time, and it proves that outsourcing services does not always make savings, and it's not always OMPs by 20%, on the back of us being forward-looking in undertaking a full review and restructure. I know it's only a small amount in the grand scheme of things, but I wonder what sort of message it sends out to our other contributing partners. The Council fully recognises the importance of these areas and the contribution they make to the Suffolk economy. I am fully aware that nobody is safe from the financial restraints that we find ourselves under, but I wish that the reduction could have been phased with a full consultation with us. However, accepting the fact that it is in today's budget, I hope the portfolio holder can reassure us that what they've taken out will be that we get for the rest of the term of this administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any next speaker for David? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what today's debate has highlighted to me is the vast difference between the way this council deals with its budget debate and the way St Edmundsbury Borough Council deals with it. As the borough, we tend to have disagreements on minor issues in terms of the budget, but it doesn't tend to turn into a slanging match. And I think that's regrettable that that's happened here. But my main point is that, well, a bit of fun says Mark, well, I enjoy it, so Mark probably does, but I don't. The issue for me, though, is the point made that Colin Noble made, that in fact the budget process started in the 23rd of October by going to scrutiny, and then on for the second one on the 21st of November. So, on the face of it, it looks as though scrutiny works and everybody's involved, but to me, by the amendment put in by Councillor Martin, it's clear that they don't feel, the Labour Group don't feel as though they're involved in this to some extent, and therefore we need to put in a short one-page amendment, which I didn't think was satisfactory. So I hope that next year, Mr. Finch and his committee, which I remember, will take into account Labour concerns about what the budget is being proposed. Now, I don't know what the outcome will be. We may end up with another round this time next year, but I hope that there will be consideration about how we work together rather than in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker was Councillor Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Budget day really at any council across the country is a time for us to reflect on why we were elected. We in this chamber are here today because we've been given an enormous responsibility of looking after the people of Suffolk and deciding how to spend the shrinking budget. Now, I am a great lover of history, and I could not speak today without reminding the opposition why, in fact, we are looking at a budget reduction of 156 million over the next 4 years. It is without any doubt because of one man, and that man who said he had abolished boom and bust. The same man who told us he was prudent. The same man, in fact, who led this country on a spend, 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 borrow, borrow, borrow. It is because of this fundamental difference between you and us, where we believe in careful management of budgets, where we have a non-borrowing philosophy, unlike the opposition. As a newly elected councillor, all I can really do is look at the history of what has gone on in the past. And I have gone further back than my colleague, Councillor Noble. In fact, in 1999, council tax went up 10%. 99, 2000, 8.4%. 2000, 2001, 7.3%. 2001, 2002, 6.9%. 2002, 3, 11.9, and yes, you've guessed it, 03, 04, 18.5%. Now, we have listened to the people of Suffolk, and we are protecting frontline services. People say they want the council run more efficiently, and that has been done. Staff have been cut before my time, and we are going forward on a tighter budget. And people say to me the whole time, do not put up council tax. Look at the past, look what's happened, it has been wasted. This side of the room clearly believes in not wasting money. The idea of raiding reserves is simply reckless, and we must live within our means. I appreciate it's unnatural to that side of the room, but it is clearly visible from the historic increases over time that prudential being prudent in financial management is clearly the only way forward, and I'm very happy to support the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm reluctant really to stand up because I'm not sure that I can do the Alex Ferguson accent like my council member was suggesting or like me. There's just a few bits and pieces that were occurring to me as I was listening to some of the other commentary on what was going on. The cost of a referendum for actually taking to try and put in any increase to the council tax for the whole of Suffolk would be upwards of £1 million. So if we were to, even if we wanted to, the idea that we would actually charge the people of Suffolk £1 million just to get them to say no, we don't want a council tax increase. When we've actually, as I think Councillor B pointed out this morning on the radio, we've already been to the people of Suffolk and said, do you want 4 years of 0% council tax increases? And they said no last May. That's we all remember, I'm sure. Councillor Adams was highlighting the saving that was in the ACS proposals for supporting people, £2 million. And both Councillor Adams and I are very keen on supporting people like the YMCA and that sort of voluntary organisation and the way that Suffolk County Council works with other organisations to provide accommodation for vulnerable people, whether they be young people or those with learning disabilities and that sort of thing. And I think that is the way forward. We have to be looking at different ways of delivering frontline services. Councillor Martin has said that something about change in delivering frontline services. Of course there is a change. There has to be a change in delivering frontline services. It doesn't have to be detrimental. It just has to be thinking a bit differently. And that's where the money has been going over the last probably 4 or 5 years. And I can speak quite authoritatively on that point, as you'll probably appreciate. But if we, the thing that has struck me, and somebody said to me once before, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll get what you've always had. And that works in financial terms as well. And we have to look at different ways of delivering services. We've got new ways of working. We've got the divestment of some of the services that have gone outside of the council and have been a terrific success. EFMS are now they're still providing much of the same work that they were doing before, but they're also providing other services to other organisations. And I think we must applaud them for that, and applaud all of the other organisations that are listed on the page 40 of the paper. I think it is the way forward, and we must follow a different way if we are to keep delivering services to the people of Suffolk, preventative services as much as the sort of end line services, if you like. So I very much commend this budget to you.
Councillor Smith, 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, 2 things. I want just briefly to talk about the area that I'm responsible for and the savings that will be delivered. But first, just a brief reply, if I may, to Councillor Wood. Because I am a great admirer of our 2 areas of outstanding natural beauty in this county. But it is unfortunately the case, and we're obviously considering it in detail today, that over the next 4 years the County Council has to find £156 million of savings and is committed to a council tax freeze. Now this budget reduction equates to about 30% across all areas of the council. I'm aware that where possible we should try to front load our savings so that we get off to as good a possible start. Now, I think that's possible in our 2 areas of outstanding natural beauty because they've recently concluded a restructure to bring together 2 teams under a single manager. Given that foresight and the excellent work that the two partnerships have completed to prepare for budget reductions, we are in a position to take a 20% saving early in next year. Can I give you my reassurance that I realise that I am taking a large part of your saving early in that 4-year period, and when we come to look at future budgets, I will bear that big cut in mind. The County Council is committed to its funding for the two areas of natural beauty, and I will not want to disadvantage you because you're delivering savings early. Indeed, I shall be present at Thorpe Nest in my division tomorrow week, when the Suffolk Coast and Heaths area of outstanding natural beauty launches its management plan, and I'll do all I can to ensure their exciting plans get my full support. Now, my own area, Mr. Chairman, I'm delivering £8.2 million worth of savings in the forthcoming year. Now, I don't consider myself a particularly lucky person. I go to fundraising events and buy raffle tickets, and I very, very rarely buy anything, win anything. I don't win on the lottery. That's why we put a level of tickets, but I have been lucky with my cabinet responsibilities because due to the excellent work of my predecessors, the energy from waste plant at Ereira-Guyer is nearly ready to start its work. Hot commissioning, as is said, should start in June. Trials will take 6 months, and there's every indication that will start early, and the moment it starts, the savings come into play. In the next year alone, we should save £8 million in this budget, and again, that is because of good planning over the last 5 years of this council delivering that. I dare say there might be an opportunity to increase those savings because we are in negotiations with Norfolk to see if we can help them with their waste problem. But at the moment, that's all I wish to say on that point of view.
That's fine. That's you done. Right.
Did it?
Thank you, Chairman. I promise I won't use the word 18.5%. I just wanted to quickly say thank you to Councillor Newland for all the hard work you're doing here at Stephens. We really do appreciate that. Obviously, the administration, new Labour spinners, yeah, brilliant. You're always saying how you can do more with less. And we are talking about a substantial amount of less money. We're talking about £38 million this year, 156 million over 3 years, from a budget of just over £500 million. The paper says, plus, this is very deep. And don't try and kid the people of Suffolk that if you have a tax freeze, nobody suffers, because they do. We've got inflation, we've got demand rising, we've got the cuts the government are bringing. So if you are an older person who needs social care, if you are somebody that wants to use the library, if you are somebody that wants advice from a voluntary centre, voluntary organisation, you are going to suffer from more and more of these cuts. And to suggest anything else is just lies and spin. I think we all know that. And we now have this kind of machismo from the Conservatives going on and on and on. You could keep it near inflation. Eric Pickles, and I keep thinking of Colin when he sang earlier, like the Suffolk's Eric Pickles, really. Like, you want to be tough. But he's probably going to go down as the worst Secretary of State this country's ever seen. So you've got this obsession, absolute obsession, of doing exactly what you're told by central government. And you do it all the time. You like austerity. You really do. You're addicted to austerity. And we've seen this ever since I've been in this chamber, year 5, and probably say that's too many years. Every time, all you ever announce is cuts in services. That's all you ever think about. It's money, money, money. And cuts, cuts, cuts. You won't have any local government left. And you'll probably be quite pleased at that point. And it actually reminds me of sort of parent-child relationship with central government. Whatever they tell you to do, the parent tells you to do. You as children just come back to Suffolk and do it. You don't have any backbone. You don't stand up for Suffolk. And now we're seeing in this paper, our revenue support grant in 2014 go down from £112 million to 2018 to £46 million. That's what you're allowing your government to do, and that's going to have a very detrimental impact on the people in Suffolk. We've seen our own workforce, Chairman, reduced from 10,500 to just over 5,000. And as James says, oh, it's so much better, it's outsourced, well, we're giving it into the private sector, and that's where we want it to be, because that's the sort of administration we are. And then you're using the front of austerity and the government to hide those things. You talked about £1 million for this referendum, which is what we cost, isn't it? We cost about £1 million as council. And if we're doing exactly what the government tells us to do, what's the point of us? What's the point? Why don't we do something quite brave here in Suffolk? Why don't we say, I said it on the radio this morning, why don't we go down the Brighton law? Why don't we have a referendum with people and talk about social care, talk about the services that we need here in Suffolk? That would be great. Not relying on mooring poles to try and do that. So, 2 seconds. I've now finished. It's all spin, and we know it's all spin. Too much cuts, and you're addicted to it, and I should be voting against your ridiculous budget.
I hate the fact that we cut the CIO. I hate the fact that rights to land take 100 days. I hate the fact that AMP is suffering. But as you say, we are where we are. Why are we where we are? Well, of course, because of new labour. But opposite us, we haven't got new labour, we've got old labour. Councillor Martin, he always preaches we need a strong public sector. He goes on and on and on. People have to admit that the organisations which this side of the council chain have divested are doing incredibly well. Jack kindly mentioned this in Facilities Management Solutions, which we have a small finger in the pipe, as does Red Leno. Mr. Chairman, we are gaining contracts in Norfolk, North Border, Essex, south of the border, and Cambridgeshire, west of the border. Why are we doing that? Because we aren't a competitive organisation. When we win contracts, we make profit for Suffolk and we represent. Clearly, Councillor Gaillard had public libraries. Now, I totally reject that. Come to think so, you want to see a really good library in action, working with budgets, come to think so, it's fantastic. And I understand from other people's libraries that they're all the same. And we've got Leading Lives. They're no longer part of the council, they're doing well. Realised Futures, they're doing well. If you want to take away from the council, I've got to St Edmundsbury, where I used to live for 40 minutes up to the right place. But anyway, they've got Avery Housing, which have been divested or whatever the term they use there, and it's absolutely booming. So perhaps, no, it doesn't work, but perhaps the members opposite the think that we might be doing the right way. We are doing what's good for Suffolk, and we are doing good for the residents of Suffolk. And I myself will be back with this budget. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the perfect lead-in. As the former chairman of transferred housing stock to Avery, we formed Avery. I learned one very big lesson, and that was if you want to invest, if you want to get investment, if you want to build business, that's the way to go. And we did. Went from 470,000, I think it was, that we were spending on housing, to £1 million a month. Massive. We heard about 17 million is that bit of money when you look at Care UK, it's 60 million pounds. It's 60 million pounds being invested there because it's gone down. I actually said to Brad Mill's portfolio, I'm not saying go up, I've just seen it on because I can see it on back in the world. We've heard about business that actually go outside. It's not about cuts. It's about building a business. and to other counties or whatever, Abbeycroft, you know, is something that we transferred at St Edmunds. We're actually working in Ipswich, we're in a robotic relation meetings in Ipswich and in Felixstowe. The biggest thing I learned from this was how they, you know, were bringing things down was the staff. You just imagine what that staff felt like when houses started being sold, let's go down with this and let's say that their jobs going down and down and down because there was less of a business. Well, they transferred, we got a booking program. I actually saw they got something to work for. That really encouraged them. To sell, because that's what was doing when I was talking to the members of the staff of the leisure services, I didn't need to do anything. I had a chap come in, say that didn't want to leave, because I wasn't fixing it, and he said, I've just come across from Havebury. Come on, see there's a buzz over there. I didn't explain it. They've got a real buzz about it. They were building a business. It wasn't about cutting, it was actually bringing money in, investing, building this business, and at the end of the day, and you know, you mentioned St Edmunds, but St Edmunds would benefit because we've got this sort of slogan where we've actually trying to take a couple of money back. We've actually taken more because Abbeycroft have done so well. We've actually got more houses in St Edmunds because Havebury stores well. I'm staying back for them now because I can just see how things go. These people were really enthused. We've got staff that were enthused from the FMS. How they're enthused. We've seen what they're doing. I'm really happy about this new local. I believe we've got something here. We've got something really strong to work with. It's going to be difficult in the future. It isn't about cutting people and bringing things back. It's about building businesses and reinvesting in our people who are actually happening here before, but really giving them the opportunity to go forward. Giving them the opportunity to say, hey, look, this is what we're doing, Suffolk. And I'm very proud of what they're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Davey, who wish to speak, are there any more wanting the name of the room? Yes? Councillor Garfield? Councillor Bucket? Councillor Garfield? You're on the list already. That's it, Councillor Smith? Thank you. Fine. Next person to speak is Councillor Chambers, and after that, Becky Hart. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The decisions that I have taken in this budget have not been taken lightly, but they have been made in the best interests of young people and their families in mind. The needs of children and families we work with are changing, as is the role of the local authority. And we have to make sure that we continue to adapt our services to meet their needs. There will always be children who need complex provision, and you will note that I'm not proposing any reduction in social work or early health services, whilst our work continues on our Making Every Intervention Count and family-focused programmes. One element of Making Every Intervention Count is looking again at how we can deliver children-centred services. These are highly valued. However, I believe there are savings to be made from management structures and from working smarter with other groups and organisations to make best use of accommodation. Buildings, as we know, can be expensive and don't always enhance the service that families receive. Therefore, I want this to become a service without walls. It is more effective for work to be done on an outreach basis, then that is how we should deliver that service. If it is delivered from a building, then let us link up with other services in the area and help share the costs and deliver a more rounded service. Raising attainment in our Suffolk schools remains our top priority, as the leader has said. This is reflected in our budget as we continue the necessary capital funds for the completion of the school's organisation review, a key part of our strategy to raise attainment. We can meet some of the costs from reserves, freeing up £1 million of our base budget without reducing the funding to the are investing an additional £5.9 million in the coming year and attracting national funding to better serve the children and young people of our county. Therefore, I support the budget that is before us today.
Spot, thank you so much. The next person to speak is Beck Hofsberger at Ingelong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It gives me great pleasure to be able to endorse the budget as laid out in the papers before you. The locality portfolio's budget, although small, is not insignificant in staff programs are placed and local response associated with it. These programs are central to the delivery of the budget. This administration's commitment to empowering communities to help shape services in the area is a key element of the portfolio. Following through this ethos, it gives me great pleasure to be able to announce a new one-off fund, the Enhancing Community Fund. There will be two elements to this fund, one being a small locality fund under the Suffolk Armed Forces Community Covenant, supporting local projects within Suffolk's military community, and secondly, a funding scheme for councillors to invest in the transformation of community assets through their locality budgets, giving them £4 for every £1 invested. We have listened to concerns raised over proposals to stop the corporate regeneration fund, and rather than simply reinstating it as proposed in Labour's amendment, we have looked at how monies would better help us support our communities. Moving on to the saving proposals within the library sector, £94,000 being saved through the renegotiation of HR finance contracts, rationalisation of IT, and the non-payment regulation of the contract price. The 38 French schools enrolled in our libraries have embraced the opportunity to increase the activities available and the freedom to fundraise and spend money locally without having to contribute to the central IPS budget, resulting in a service that has real community engagement through community activities. The demand for e-books has risen by 6%, allowing us to reduce our physical book stock by £70,000. This has not resulted in an inadequate book supply, as indicated by Labour's amendment, as Suffolk still has the third highest number of books per person of all county authorities. The same proposals within the grant, the same proposals to grants within the cultural sector by no means an indication of how the council values this sector. Suffolk has a strong and vibrant cultural sector that supports the local economy, plays a major part in our visitor attractions of the county, and supports our priorities for creativity through raising the bar, supporting lives and connecting community programmes. Within this challenging financial position, it is essential to ensure the council's funds add value, attract more cultural investment into the county, and make a difference to our priorities economically, socially and culturally. We will continue to work with and support the sector further to find ways to create more sustainability, grow our other commercial income streams and support their work around philanthropy. Extensive equality impact assessments being carried out of all reductions in grants, ensuring that the most vulnerable people and the protected groups are safeguarded against any adverse impacts. We continue to have conversations with these groups on how we support them better through our enabling and transformation programmes. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, this administration is clear with its vision, the pace of work to be undertaken, and I commend to you a prudent and financially sound budget delivered through partnership working and real community engagement.
The next speaker is Councillor Ingelong, and after that, Councillor Richard Kemp, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that you'll be very disappointed if I don't speak to you in this one, because you've got this wonderful memory and you do this lovely research. Now, losing 14 million in something called resource equalization, however you say it, is that not loss of money? You said when you put the council tax up that year of 18.5%, you said it was not losing money. Losing 40 million 1 year and suddenly being told, is that not losing money? I think, and in the same year, the Conservative controlled East Sussex put their council tax up to 19.6%. If you want to look into history, I think you ought to look into history properly. Since you two go on, what I would have expected you to do was, if it was so bad we put the council tax on. And yes, it's horrible for the people who have to pay it. But actually, what I want you to do is come to the budget to say, oh, we will give it back to you. You see, you have kept taking that money from the council taxpayers ever since. You have not reduced the percentage in council taxes. You know, if you, for example, get 20 million in 1 year, and you keep taking it year after year after year, after 10 years, that's 200 million. Now, where has most of that money gone? It's actually gone into adult care, because we put a lot more extra money into adult care. I would like Councillor Murray to tell me where adult care would have been today if the council budget had not been raised. At what stage would our care homes, would our services, what would you offer the people you're negotiating with today about how much money you can give them to look after our what they want to pay for? We know that there are talks going on with these care homes. They haven't had a lot of increase in the last few years. And we know that, and the care homes know that. But the cost of food and everything goes on. I am certainly not defending bad management, which clearly has happened in some care homes and one in my division recently. I'm certainly not defending that. But I am saying that the money we put in that year, a lot of that went into social care. I actually asked some officers to work here before they retired. Were we absolutely stupid? Were we completely mad? Should we not have done what we did? First, these most senior officers said to me, Inga, if you had not done that, we would have been in a horrible situation with our social services and with our care for the elderly.
I'm starting to listen to it.
Absolutely fine. I have probably said enough, and I'm sure that will be very attacking me. But we do need to care for our elderly people. And I will see how many care homes can keep affording on what we offer them.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to remind members in this room, the Riot Act was last read in Suffolk in 1866 in Long Melford. And I have to say, when the imposition of an 18.5% increase was imposed, I was dreading there would be another Riot Act in Long Melford. It didn't happen. And just to remind Councillor Noble, that I did in fact support the Conservative amendment for the Conservative alternative budget, which was 14.5%! Well, I apologise for lowering the tone of this debate, Chairman, but to reach the decision to support this budget, I had to put it in the context of who I would buy a second-hand voter card from. Would it be Eric Pickles, the destroyer of Bradford, or would it be Colin Noble, the robust cruiserweight from Forest Hill? And Mr. Noble has it! I am a reluctant supporter, and I'll tell you why I'm reluctant. I do not think it is good budgeting to accept 1% increases, which I think reduces your base rate. And you are confronted with the fact, whichever index you take, the money you have is being reduced by 2 to 3% per annum. So that really is not very good budgeting. But however, I've taken the view of the 9 parishes I represent, but they're all pretty hard up, as most people are, and they would welcome a zero increase. By the way, Mr. Martin, we are to lose you to Europe. I think you should look at the figures for local government over the last 20 years and rate support from all governments, not just Conservative governments, it has decreased and decreased. And the amount of legislation that goes through Westminster is probably top of the list for the whole of Europe. And it's then imposed on local government. So you're in a dilemma. The crux is, why we're all here today, is we don't get enough money from whatever government's in power. Anyway, the question I wish to ask on this budget is page 45 on F, which it says, learning from the Care MG contract. I'm afraid my learning's not been very good at the moment. I've experienced all sorts of problems, and I know there is a lot of unhappiness within the ranks of this authority, and I think whoever examines this should look at it very, very carefully. Examination of the service commitment, the method of programming work, and the response to audit. For goodness sake, get it sorted, because we are getting a bad name as a result. So sorry, I know you're the great defender of private enterprise against the public use, Councillor Noble, but I'm telling you the truth, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have got at least, I think, 7 speakers which to speak, plus the winders up. Do you wish to have a break now? Those who want a break, please show hands. Yeah. We'll break for 15 minutes, please. Please come back to the council chamber. 15 minutes.
blame the socialists as a whole job. There's a lot of it to do with other factors as well.
people is what politics should really be about. Politics is a people business, and that's what we do in our divisions. To a certain extent, whatever party we believe in, we really have to care for the people, and that doesn't always cost money. Whether you're trying to help people in the streets, which we all do, whether you're trying to assist people who are lonely, why do you always have to put a price on the politics? It's about looking after people. Because that's what really matters. When we strip everything else away, that's what we're here to do. We're here to look after people, to realise that perhaps we'll be in that same situation when there's a man who needs a meal, we're all going to have to shower on the street who wants a meal and take them to the restaurant. My understanding, we don't necessarily throw £5 and stuff that go and drink or take drugs or whatever other figures problem. So politics is about people, Mr. Chairman, and it's essential that we keep that in our minds. The other thing is, I'm very surprised that Councillor Martin didn't take notice of his own leader, the Martin Mr. Willoughby, because he said, I admire Mrs. Thatcher the other day, I quote, we've got to do things differently than that said. Do you know what, on this side of the house, we are doing things differently because we realise that we have to do things differently if we're going to save money, help people, bring about compensation savings that Councillor Noble has set out in great detail in his speech today. Another good thing is that a lot of the people around here, those who work for them, are responsible for them. It's as if, as you know, managing directors or directors of a big company that employs 5,000 people, they can't always speak in this chamber. They think a lot, they say a lot to themselves, but they watch carefully. And I think long may that continue, because we may well come to a stage where the first floor has to ask questions to the second floor, and IT has to ask questions to the PR, and PR has to ask questions of all the other divisions, all the other services, be it children and young people, be it social services. And when that dialogue gets away, that is where the compensation savings will emanate. As I say, we're in the people business. Many respects politics gets in the way of that. That's very sad. Regarding testosterone, the thing you need a lot of testosterone to do, Mr. Chairman, is the vast amount of debt that our country is facing, regardless of which political party we're in. Unless we concentrate our minds accordingly, then we're heading for the rules. Thank you, Mr. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of points I'd like to pick up there that have been said. The Council to austerity or whatever, but it was the very outcome of everything he was talking about. The system of continual rise in the council tax, which made me get on my back in 2005, stand in relation to this chamber. Ever since I've been member of the Felixstowe in this place, I have increased my majority. I have always stood on the basis of reducing or even holding still council tax. That's always the top thing in my election address. So you can't say that the people of Felixstowe do not want that, because they never voted before and they go for it. Right, next. I have to take that is the features of the roads and transport announcements, everything we can possibly have to amend the new parking line service, and actually we are saving money, and the operator is bringing more stuff to the table that he wants to do to improve the profitability of the service, because it still costs the council £600,000 a year, which is a lot of money. Another way we are trying to make savings, but not in any way affect frontline service. That is an investment of £3 million, which you can see on Annex E, page 7, and the 11th item down against over £3 million on new LED luminaires for street lighting. That will enable this authority to save £500,000 a year. That's the sort of approach that this side takes to accommodate the sort of savings we've got. It's not all about cutting in services, as the other side I believe. It's about doing things better. That's what I really
Thank you. I wasn't planning to speak during this one, but I'll be very brief. I would like to compliment Councillor Noble on the entertaining value of his speech earlier. In fact, I was incredibly amused with his complete chance of robustness. I thought it was an order to Eric Pickles Taylor for a minute. But there's a serious rule to being robust. I'm sure you can share it out, your budget should be incredibly robust because we are sailing an awful long way into some very turbulent times. I've not been in this chamber very long at all, and I always get really annoyed, which is why I clapped and stood, which was a very uncommon thing to do, and I do apologise what I've done, because we can stop keep harking back to the past, because the public out there actually aren't that bothered about what happened 10 years ago. They want to know what you're going to do now, and how you're going to help them, and how you're going to move Suffolk on, which is why I make almost the same speech every year. When you start harking back to Westminster figures and Westminster, they're not interested in that. I'm interested in Suffolk and my part of Suffolk people. So I've got a lot more debate about Suffolk and a lot less about Westminster. Also, we need to get over the phrase that we are where we are. We're not actually where we are, exactly where we choose to be. That's a redundant argument. Also, you've been suggesting that you need to have good judgment. I actually think at times you've had very good judgment. You had very good judgment at the last election. Look at you. There's more of you than there are on this side. That judgment was based on something that I would not have pledged. I thought saying you're not going to keep council tax at all for 4 years, I thought that was a check perhaps I wouldn't have been prepared to write. Because we do see sometimes what happens when things are trimmed perhaps just a little bit too thin. And you're also going to need some reserves, because we're heading for some slightly choppy time. Not talking about business too much, but we are stuck in a bit of a housing bubble again, if we're not careful, and that's going to mean another boom and bust cycle. It's coming. Most of your senior economists are saying that's where we're heading. It will probably help with the next general election, but we don't want to talk about Westminster again. I also agree with you, Councillor Stammer. Thank you for what you said about wanting it to be about Suffolk-centric and look at how it's affecting the people here. And there was mention of membership and the loss of the corporate regeneration fund. And I didn't know where did that go. I didn't say that went. That went in what is now the Membership Internet Cafe, which is now one of the awards in Suffolk for the work it does with the youth, for training elderly people on how to access the internet. Another thing that this administration has done quite a lot of work with, and I told you so I vote for the amendment because I don't want to see that go, because just because memberships have that opportunity, I don't want to deny that to others. And equally, you mentioned about the foresightness you've got of changing an awful lot of your lights to LED. That's probably only concession to the Green Standard. Membership installed this 100% LED streetlights 1 year ago. 1 year ago.
Two more speakers, and that has been the timely this round of prime action. Keep that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make 3 points. First of all, Councillor Ewan probably talked about it, the first point I wanted to make, but I would say how pleased I was and how pleased also my constituents are that we are maintaining the budget on highways. You know, there's some problems at the moment, but we are maintaining that budget, and that is very good news, and let's talk about good news for a change. There are several other areas where we're maintaining the budget as well. No reduction in expenditure, which is equally good news. Highways is the most significant. The second thing I want to say, we've talked an awful lot about reserves already. When I first became a councillor, I was horrified at the low level of reserves that councils have. Compared with commercial organisations, it's appalling. And I was very, very worried when I saw it. Anyhow, eventually, I discovered that through the external auditors, that they looked for a minimum of 5% of gross expenditure as a level of reserves, or contingency reserves of one sort or another. And we do just about achieve that level, so that's satisfactory. But we don't have a great deal of reserves, and don't pretend that we do. The last thing I want to say is I'm disappointed with a substantial number of the members opposite who haven't learnt the problems which are caused by over-expenditure, which we saw nationally for a long time. Indeed, for each of the three periods of Labour governments, it ended up with shortage of money handing over to the incoming government, the economy in problems. And I would hope that the members opposite would have seen that we must curtail our expenditure, particularly in these difficult times. And I would ask them to think seriously as whether it's wrong to vote against this motion, because I believe we haven't touched the edges, if you like, but I don't believe we have any choice but to save the money we're saving, and indeed even greater amounts in the years ahead. I am disappointed in that. That's all.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand that Councillor Ereira commented on the amount of new faces that were within this chamber, who we didn't recognise them. I think probably since he was last here, there's been this small matter of an election. That's probably why he is. Mr. Chairman, as a new member of this council with my new councillor colleagues, I knew that this budget process would be a very challenging one, and so it's proved. But what I can't quite calculate in my small rural brain is why Councillor Martin and his Labour Party could possibly criticise the prudence, wisdom and skill of this administration in putting together this, without doubt, a very difficult and testing budget. And this is only the beginning. Let's just remember who supported the last Labour government in putting our community under huge financial risk. The Labour Party. Who supported the last Labour government in putting in danger our vital local services? The Labour Party. Who supported the last Labour government in strangling our economy and choking off any potential growth? The Labour Party. Did they consult with the public? No. Did they bring an alternative budget to scrutiny? No. Do they have any answers? No. Do they have a strategy? No. They have no budget, no ambition, no foresight. And as a consequence of that, I'm more than happy to support the motion and support this very wise and strategic budget.
So before the main speakers come in, Councillor Ereira-Guyer, you're the last one to say.
Thank you. A few random thoughts, really. First of all, Councillor Clement, thank you. Certainly there's a bus in Haverhill, where I come from. That's a mode of public transport, but I'd like to see what it actually means in Haverhill. We've been accused of having a slagging match. I thought rather that we had some impassioned debate, which I think is a good thing. And I hope that people have been respectful enough of each other. I wish that we had that in Ipswich Borough Council, but sadly the Conservative opposition barely filled one small table council meeting. So, true, absolutely
history, and you know, I can say that was the best finest speech you've made, because you made some very important and pertinent points. And thank you for reminding me that it was 14 and not 16%, because I must remember to hang on to that thought. History, this morning, did anybody else hear Nigel Lawson on the radio denying climate change?
Yeah.
My God, I think there was a time when some of us believed that he might have been Chancellor of the Exchequer, but surely that was wrong. It doesn't always pay to go back in history. Well, you're right, actually. I can't stand that phrase, we are where we are. If ever there were political inertia, it's that we are where we want to be and where we should create the space to be. And just one final thought. The big thing that David Cameron was not elected on was in fact the big society. Where is the big society? Now you might say that it's in the communities that are helping themselves, those that are believed by the floods. Absolutely right, they're helping each other as people always did. The big society was nothing new. It came to communities banding together to help each other. But those communities are nothing without the money that they will now need to get their houses, their businesses, their farms back going again. It isn't just about people helping each other, it is actually about investment, proper strategic investment that makes sure that services, homes and businesses are running. And I'll just leave you with that thought because I think it's really important. Big society has actually disappeared. Apparently, and I quoted this partly in an academic article, partly in the Financial Times, those government civil servants who are tasked with big society roles have dissipated. I don't know, they might have been made redundant for all I know. Some of them possibly have been given other duties in different parts of the civil service. The big society no longer features. If you go to Google Scholar, where you get the hits of academically, it's gone. It's gone, it's off the radar. It's no longer there being touted as a big idea. So history proves, and Nigel Lawson proves, that we really need to make sure that we remember the right things and we put ourselves where we want to be and not where we are.
Our final speakers were Mark B, Councillor Martin, and Councillor Wimble. They've each got up to 7 minutes. That's the maximum. That's not like speed limits. You aim for that. Any less than that would be appreciated. Councillor Martin.
Okay. Well, I will be very brief, and I will attempt to be very brief. And in the time that I've got to speak, I just really want to start to look forward beyond this budget debate, which I think has been a very good one, actually, and I do welcome. We are not afraid of a strong opposition. We welcome a strong opposition, because I think good administrations are made by having a good opposition, and we do recognise that, and I pay tribute to the quality of the debate that we've had today. Mr. Chairman, there's been much talk about climate change, and we've just heard it there from Councillor Rodkin. And we're having it perhaps not just in meteorological terms, but I think we're also having it in terms of public finance. But Mr. Chairman, I think what we are facing is not just a rainy day, but it is permanent financial climate change. It is a different way in which local government, public sector finances will be funded. We are having to operate with permanently less money. This will remain the case, whoever is in power nationally after 2015. I think it's going to go on well into the next decade. So looking ahead, and so we need to recognise, I believe, Mr. Chairman, that money cannot always be the solution, and instead take a different approach, to think not of simply shoring up the existing way of doing things, but to work, and to work like never before, to develop better, more sustainable ways of securing the services that people need. We need more innovative ways of working. And I think the library service, which we've heard much of today, is a perfect example. Something which was highly contentious but a couple of years ago now has been moved into a completely different place by people taking on responsibility, managing budgets, and accepting it and fulfilling all the criteria that they want within their local communities. And crucially, Mr. Chairman, we need to harness technology. Our investment in broadband is going to make a dramatic difference, not only to the economy of Suffolk, it will put over $5 billion during the lifetime of the project, but to the way that we provide services or enable people to access the services and to make choices. We need to join forces with others, working more closely and, where possible, sharing services with our fellow councils, with the local enterprise partnership, and with the public sector across Suffolk, with whom I have extremely productive working relationship, and with, I believe, this council works very closely. It was, for example, why we, through this productive relationship, we were able to achieve the Greater Ipswich City deal. A huge boon, not just for Ipswich, but for wider Suffolk, and for young people who will be able to have the skill set that they'll need in the future. It is this productive relationship why we are being able to develop Lowestoft Rising as a project, delivering a more effective public sector and improving the quality of life for everyone in the town. And that is about working across the agencies in the public sector. And so, Mr. Chairman, it is this productive relationship that we need to take forward in ensuring that our young people have the best opportunities they can. And that is why raising the bar and the £4 million that we are investing in raising the bar is such an important project. The partnership with schools in Hackney that has enabled us to help schools link up with local businesses, that has seen us lead the way in working with schools to help and involve parents much more closely in their children's education. And that is reflected in the flood of nominations for our first Raising the Bar awards. And it goes on, Mr. Chairman. Consider the voluntary sector. So much of what we do and what we want to achieve is only possible because of our relationship with the voluntary sector. And I pay tribute to Councillor Spence for the hard work that he's done in sustaining that link with them. Crucially, Mr. Chairman, when it comes to partnership, we must also look beyond our county borders, not just with Norfolk, with whom we've signed a memorandum of understanding, but also, I believe, the shared interest that we may have with Essex and Cambridgeshire as well. There are savings to be made and services to be improved by following this approach, and we must continue down this path with ever greater determination. These are opportunities on which we know we can achieve results and solutions, which is why we must take them forward. Another source we cannot and must not do is to rely on the council tax. Increases, Mr. Chairman, the people of Suffolk feel they've already paid enough, and much has been said this afternoon about that. But instead we must look at the way we transform our services, new structures, new priorities, new ways of doing our services. And I want to do some work on this, and when we have our AGM in May, I will set out to the council how I see this being taken forward then. Everybody is facing a financial squeeze. We must face it too, and live within our means. And at no point is this going to be easy. But I, and I suspect you, didn't come into politics for an easy ride. I stood for election because I wanted to make a difference, and I suspect you did as well. And we can only make this difference by taking those difficult decisions and taking them, I believe, now. For Mr. Chairman, by far, it is more important that we have a steady ship with today's budget, which I believe signals our ambitions for Suffolk, and it is a sustainable budget which does add up. Ambitions for Suffolk's children with our focus on education and raising the bar. Ambition for young people with our investment in apprenticeships and training. Opportunities and ambition for Suffolk's economy with our support for the Suffolk growth strategy and investment in broadband and other vital infrastructure. It is also a budget coloured through with compassion. Compassion for the most vulnerable people in our county, young and old alike. We must always ensure we are capable of doing our duty by them, one of our key priorities, and something we will not forget. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I must pay tribute to the County Council staff, to Councillor Noble, in particular also to Jeff Noble, for whom Jeff Jeff, I do apologise.
You've got a diet tomorrow.
But Jeff, we hear, does not only confine himself to our group. We are pleased to see that he gives up his talents very freely. But delivering the savings takes unstinted commitment from our staff across the entire council. And on behalf of you all, I'd like to thank you. It is no small measure, and thanks to that commitment, that we are, for the second time in a row, being shortlisted for the Local Government Chronicles Award for the Most Improved Council. a testament, I believe, if ever there was one, to how far we've come and the work that we have put in. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a budget for the future, a budget for Suffolk, based on strong financial management, clear-sighted priorities, and ambition for the future. As leader of this council, I am proud to support the Executive budget, and while I welcome the challenge from those opposite, and thank everyone for their contributions today, I urge you all to join me and support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you'll all be very pleased to hear that I shall be extremely brief. Councillor B has been telling us of the exciting opportunities that there are and new ways of working with the third sector, working in partnership with other public sector bodies in order to deliver the best possible services for the people of Suffolk. And of course, we support that. Our aim is to see the best possible services being delivered to the people of Suffolk. But it costs. You cannot deliver public services without having the money to spend to deliver them. And the role of the budget is to provide that budget envelope in which those improved services can be delivered. I cannot see how you can raise the standard of education by cutting the overall financial envelope for education. I cannot see how you can deal with the problems that you have in some of your failing care homes by cutting the amount of money available for residential care. The Conservative councillors in this room have sought to portray the Labour Party as champions of waste and the enemies of sound finance. Is it a waste to provide safe and dignified care for the elderly? Is it a waste to provide the best possible education for the young? Is it sound finance to preside over a society where cuts are made in basic provision to the most vulnerable, while tax rates are slashed for millionaires and bankers continue to receive vast bonuses? We believe in public service. We believe in giving vulnerable people the support they need to become valued members of society once more. We do not believe that the cuts you have already made and the cuts you are now imposing will make our county safer, or healthier, or happier, or more prosperous. And we oppose this budget.
So before we go to the vote, Councillor Noble to wind up the debate. Councillor Noble.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to echo Councillor B's comments about a robust debate. Those that believe, with respect, it's about having a robust debate, making our points, countering those points. And I actually think we get something out of that, and I think the process goes through that. So I very much welcome the debate we've had here today. Councillor Martin, you talk about preventative measures, and in your summing up you said, I don't see how the cutting of money being spent on residential care and you can continue to deliver quality residential care. Okay, let me try and explain that to you, because it really actually goes to the heart of this. It really goes to the heart of this. What we're trying to do, through the Health and Wellbeing Award, through the new forms of working, through the Better Care Fund, is what we're trying to do is do what the Happy Report said. And it said, keep more people in their own homes. So instead of having to go into residential care, we support them in their own homes. So that is precisely how we will achieve that. And it goes to the heart of what we're trying to do over here. We're trying to find new ways of doing things. We're trying to find new ways of delivering services, living within the financial constraints we have, and delivering services and doing it differently to protect frontline services. That is the absolute heart of what we plan to do here. Councillor Ereira, nobody appreciates the soundbite more than me, I have to say. But money, cuts. The thing is, we're legally obliged, as the Section 151, to deliver a budget here. So just saying we don't accept central government doesn't really work. Sorry about that, but that's the way it works. Whilst I'm on the Greens, thank you very much for the tutorial advice and discussion about tables in Council 3. Thank you very much. These ones occasionally get quite surreal. As Councillor Banfield said, 0% of council increase, prudent reserves, and a workable budget. That is exactly what we're doing here. Councillor Wood, I nobly appreciate your Damascus conversion to 0% council tax more than me, but it's good to see after all these many years. Councillor Clements, I think, said some very interesting comments around this agenda about working with KUK and how we reinvestment in working with Abercroft and Havebury Housing. I think these are the things we're talking about here. How do you deliver more service with less money? That has to be the home ground for all of us, irrespective of our side. How do we live within the less money that we've got, the less money we're going to have over the next 2 years, and still deliver a quality of service to people? You do that by being innovative. You do it by being different. What you don't do is go to that monolithic place that only the council can provide. And as I said when I opened the speech, when you look at the multiplicity of different ways in which we deliver services, from the Independent Industrial Providence Society and designers, through to our mutuals, through Sensitive Change, the others, through our wholly owned companies. When you look at all of these things, through our own staff, through our social work, all different forms of delivery, trying to get the best value out of it, protecting those front-line services. So, Councillor Belfield, I come to the point she made, and it is absolutely the point about the reserves. And I do come back to it because it is something that we're focused on, because a budget is nothing if it is undeliverable. A budget is nothing if it is not sustainable. A budget is nothing if it doesn't attempt to deal with eventualities. But I think there is something going on here. I actually think when you look at this, and you look at what is being said by Councillor Martin, and then you look at the £4.5 million and how by 3.8 years that actually kills the contingency budget, I think there's something going on here. And I think essentially what Councillor Martin is arguing is that if Labour get elected in 2015, if Hillary does as he says and he removes the referendum cap, maybe we'll return to significant council tax increases. Then they can pay for any policies. And maybe the dark days of 11.9 and 18 is nothing more than a warm-up act to what is to come. So yes, Councillor Brookin, as you said, we are very scared of you. I entirely agree. The notion of this county returning to your power one day is a very scary prospect for anybody who pays their council tax. And like Councillor Newman, that is precisely why I first got involved in this, because I could not believe what landed on my doorstep, that you could put up the council tax. And Councillor Lockington, thank you for that about inflation, because it's a really interesting point, because if you come away from the referendum point and actually look at the inflation rate, the 0% council tax we are delivering this year doesn't save £129 to people, it saves £179. At the end of our term, it doesn't save 205, it saves £278 for every working family in Suffolk. And when we talk about dependency, and when we talk about the tipping points, those are the tipping points. When you actually put people under financial pressure, that is part of how you protect people. So, Mr. Chairman, this budget is about listening to what the people of Suffolk have said to us. It is about its deliverability and the new ways we are working on this side of the chamber. And it's about robustness, about prudence, about having the reserves that allow us to have the confidence that our staff can go out there and actually deliver what we are asking them to do. Mr. Chairman, it is about delivering our election promises. It is about protecting the most vulnerable in our communities. It is about adapting and protecting frontline services, and it is about families that pay their council tax. It is about delivering another year of zero, and we will continue to do so while we are in power. So I commend this budget to this chamber.
Thank you all who've stayed the course and contributed to this afternoon's debate. It has been stimulating and interesting. And I'm sure now that I've accepted my claim. Is that right, Councillor Martin? In that case, now we're ready to vote on the motion which is to accept the budget.
how many of those members contested votes?
Councillor, what are you suggesting?
I think there might have been a vote cast in this chamber for a member that wasn't.
I'd like to identify that.
Mr. Chair, I just committed something wrong. My bridge colleague got my bill for him, so
I really must say, if you stand for election for a county council, you must surely realise in the debate you only vote once. There was a very serious action taken by members on this. It went all the way up. It cost a fortune in legal fees, as you can imagine. I really must feel you should understand the rules of debate. That's very good to get something. It's a shame you actually ruined the whole thing by voting twice. Thank you, David Woods. I was in that case then, ask for you take the ballot again. And please be careful in future. Regardless of whether you should be chastised for something out of debate. So, yeah. Sorry, say again? Oh, hang on, I'm going to speak. Just stand up. Speak. Hello?
I really would like a little more courtesy than that. But never mind, Joe. I will speak to the monitoring officer afterwards about the action that needs to be taken on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, I don't want to hold members up genuinely. I think something quite serious has happened this afternoon, and I think we've got to still nonetheless agree a budget. So I think, Mr. Chairman, you are right in moving forward with the vote. I think that's right. But I'm with Councillor Rudkin. I think that there needs to be a proper investigation for this, and I would ask the monitoring officer does that, I'm sure he will, and there was a report back to group leaders and then to this council about the action taken on this. Because I think if not, if this message is not being clear, then we're going to be back to the situation we've been before, where somebody went all the way and were banned for a year and banned from public office. It is that serious an issue.
Those in favour of the budget, please indicate by voting for saying so. Against 3, abstaining 4. Please vote now. Have you all voted? Once.